Hello guys, this is R2 Memes. If you're new, subscribe with notifications on, and also subscribe to Animated Horror Flicks. They make great animations of scary stuff basically. And today we're going to be reacting to 5 of them. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and follow me on Twitter. And before we get started, you can pause the video, get snacks and whatever you want to eat while we're watching this video, scary video. Okay, first one, ghost plane. Are you kidding me? Every time I make a video, I get an ad. Animated Horror Flicks presents Nightmare on a Plane. Imagine going on a flight, you look out the window and you realize how dark it is. There is no light, nothing outside. The only light you have is inside the plane, but around the plane it's complete darkness.
It was Halloween and the flight had suffered a huge delay for whatever reason, which led to most of the passengers being reseated on other flights, leaving only a handful of us, and by us, I mean those unlucky enough not to have been reseated or unable to afford a hotel, stuck at the airport. Despite the long wait, I actually preferred sharing the cabin with fewer passengers, which is something usually one could only accomplish in first class. I enjoyed the luxury of being able to choose my seat once I boarded the flight. While most of the passengers had decided to sit at the far back section of the plane, I chose a quiet corner seat in the front section where there were just a few other passengers that appeared to know each other judging by how close they were seated together. The flight was originally intended to take place during the day, but the delay had resulted in an overnight flight. Not a big deal, but I did miss seeing the awesome view from outside the window, which eventually led me to focus my attention to the interior of the cabin. Despite the fact that most planes often appear larger on the inside, the enclosed space always made me feel a little uncomfortable and usually resulted in a persistent need for a distraction such as reading a book or listening to music. I was about to pull out my phone when I was suddenly approached by the flight attendant asking me if I wouldn't mind sitting with the other passengers. Albeit confused, I agreed to the unusual request since I was traveling fairly light and I figured there must have been a good reason for it. Although I did regret asking why when I had the chance. Shortly after changing seats and settling in, the entire cabin...
Did you just see her back there just watching him? Look at that, look at that.
Shortly after changing seats...
Look at her on the right. Look at her just staring at him. Or she's about to do something bad.
And settling in, the entire cabin plunged into an eerie silence. I probably wouldn't have thought that much of it had it not been for the conversations between the other passengers that had quickly faded into frightened whispers of shock and disbelief. Have you ever felt that strange sensation of the atmosphere around you instantly becoming heavy with sorrow and the thought of never being cheerful again?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it felt like, and even more so as I looked to see what everyone was getting so upset about.
What the hell?
I couldn't quite believe my eyes at first, and the notion of sharing a small cabin with a dead person for the remainder of the flight was extremely unsettling. I knew that the flight staff were probably just following procedure, but I could still feel my stomach churning in the face of this morbid turn of events. At that point, I decided to head on to the restroom. I eventually ended up just taking a breather and telling myself to get a grip. I wasn't the only passenger on the plane after all. After a few minutes of finally pulling myself together enough to try to get through the rest of the flight, a loud thud shook the door.
You scream when you say, "Help! Help me! Who the F is there? Get the freak out of here!"
Suddenly, the banging stopped and all I could hear was my elevated breathing.
Something's
Strangely, I
wrong.
felt less safe alone locked inside the restroom than I did outside with the rest of the passengers, so I waited just a few minutes before cautiously opening the door. I couldn't see any sign of danger as I peered through the gap in the door and prepared to vacate the restroom. Just as I was about to discreetly return to my seat, the same flight attendant from before appeared out of nowhere, almost hitting me with a service trolley. It looked like she had just finished serving fresh beverages to some of the passengers, and I remember thinking how strange it was that she appeared oblivious to the loud banging on the restroom door that had occurred just moments prior. She remained completely speechless, and there was something off about the way she looked at me. You know that weird stare you give someone when you suspect they're onto you for whatever reason? I eventually broke eye contact, and she continued down the aisle to serve drinks to the rest of the passengers.
Oh, so she was staring at him like that? I feel like she's stalking him.
I quickly returned to my seat, having almost completely forgotten about the corpse that had been seated in the corner behind me. I still can't believe I managed to walk right past it without even noticing. I guess I was still a little distracted by the fact that none of the other passengers appeared to have heard the loud banging on the door either.
Why is she staring
Perhaps
at
it wasn't
him
as loud as I
once in a
remember.
while?
Maybe it was just a prank. It was Halloween after all. At least I had a spooky Halloween tale to share with my young nephews back at home. Even if it meant not being able to share the entire truth of what really happened on board that flight. At least until now.
What's happening? Wait, so the cabin... Oh, they're all frozen. Oh my god. They were all frozen all this time. Holy shiz.
Folks, thanks so much for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I write, narrate, and animate all of the content on my channel, and your support is the only thing that really makes it possible. It's real.
Yeah, guys, go subscribe and support him, just like you're subscribing and supporting me. Okay, and now for the next animation. Hang on. Okay, guys, second animation, and I was actually thinking about the first animation. If the passengers were frozen, how did the flight attendant, the pilot, and also the guy, how were they not frozen? So I thought about it, and since she was serving like drinks, and he did not order a drink, so maybe she poisoned these people and killed them. That might actually be it. Okay, second animation. Story by the Haunted Library.
I had been driving for the past hour and was growing sleepy. I still had 3 hours to go before I reached my hometown, and I didn't think I was going to make it without falling asleep at the wheel. I looked at the clock on my dash. It was 2:30 a.m.
Hang on, guys, hang on, let me just...
I decided that I would stop at the next hotel that I saw and just call it a night and head home first thing in the morning. It was wasn't long before I saw a massive-looking hotel on the next exit.
Okay.
I looked around over an old bridge, and there I was, in the parking lot of this surprisingly well-kept, large, 4-story hotel. The hotel looked like it was built in the early 1900s.
And there was
I thought it
someone.
would be cool to go home in the morning and tell my friends that I had stayed the night at a wickedly creepy old hotel. Once inside, I was taken back by the Victorian-style interior of the hotel. The entrance was like an older grand ballroom. Everything was pristine and clean, with huge chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, illuminating the ground level with a warm amber glow. I checked in at the front desk and was shocked to learn that I would have to pay $225 for a room. This wasn't your ordinary cheap hotel. It turns out it was a historical hotel. But since I was already there, I decided to just pay for the room and take the hit. My room was on the 4th floor, but considering how small and antiquated the elevators were, I decided to take the stairwell just to be safe.
This is creepy.
When I got to the top of the large staircase, I noticed that my room was at the end of the hallway.
Oh. See that shadow, guys?
I was quite delighted at how nice it was. It definitely had a certain nostalgic appeal, despite the old musky feel of the place, which kind of reminded me of an old library.
Okay.
Deciding to call it a night, I got into bed and was soon sound asleep.
Until... Whoa, the
Sometime during the
lightning.
night it began to storm, because I was woken by thunder and rain splattering on the windows, which was then followed by flashes of lightning. I rolled over as another flash of lightning shot through the room, illuminating a figure at the foot of my bed. But as quickly as the shadow appeared, it was gone. Startled, I sat up in bed, clearing my thoughts, and reluctantly got out of bed to investigate.
Turn the lights on, idiot. Behind you. Bang.
I quickly dismissed this as a figment of my overactive imagination. The hotel was beautiful in its own right, but it held a lot of old creepy elements within its walls that had somehow seeped its way into my consciousness. Not finding anything out of the ordinary, I went back to sleep as the thunderstorms grew louder.
Oh, this is scary though.
Again, after an hour or so of sleep, I was jarred awake by a sound. This time it sounded like somebody was knocking from inside the large closet next to the bathroom.
Holy shit, call the police! What is this guy still
When I
doing?
finally got the courage to get up to investigate, the knocking had stopped. I stood there, looking at the door that was ajar, imagining what could be lurking behind it.
And then I looked behind me.
As my heart began to thump, I reached for the door and swung it open. To my relief, the closet was empty, but I had heard knocking from the closet door. This was starting to become very unsettling. Before returning to bed, I checked the front door. I reluctantly opened it and noticed that my hands were shaking. As I poked my head out and looked, I caught a glimpse of a woman. She seemed to be wearing old clothes and had long black hair. I wondered if I was simply seeing things at this point. Maybe it was her who had knocked on my door, and I had mistakenly assumed that the sound came from the closet. Maybe she was simply trying to find her room. I shut the door and tried to assure myself I was safe before returning to bed.
And then waking up.
As I pressed my head against the pillow, I couldn't shake the feeling that somebody was watching me. I decided to keep my eyes on the closet door, that to my surprise was again slightly open. It was then that I began to feel something breathing on the back of my neck.
Oh,
I kept my eyes on the closet door as it slowly began to creak open. I held my breath in fear. The door opened all the way as the warm sensation on the back of my neck intensified. I twisted around to see a horrifying, half-decayed woman in bed with me.
Oh my god.
I jumped from the bed and ran down the hall, descending the stairs as quickly as I could. When I got to the front desk, I told the clerk that somebody was in my room. When I told her it was room 404, she frowned and immediately apologized. Apparently, I had been given the wrong keys by mistake. Nobody had been in that room for years, as the hotel had limited access due to multiple complaints of a scary woman haunting the room's occupants. I was informed that back in the early 1900s, a woman had died in that very room and had been haunting it ever since. I asked the employee to retrieve my belongings, as I refused to go back into the room. I was given a new room on the first floor, and that would be the last time I would ever spend the night at the Crescent Hotel.
Oh my god, you're so dead, my guy. Animation number 3. Guys, this one is from horror. Wait. Yeah, this one is from Horror Shorts Party again. This one it's through Amusement Park Horror Story Animated. This is animation number 3.
Summer, I decided to go to my local amusement park. My town opens the amusement park only during the summertime. I would usually spend, most of my summers indoors watching YouTube, playing video games, basically living with my introverted tendencies. I was never the type to be outgoing, but decided to make friends at the fair this year, or at least attempt to. It was around the evening time, and I remember taking the bus alone. I finally arrived and remember seeing how high the rides were. Every time I look at a roller coaster or a Ferris wheel, I always think of the movie Final Destination, where freak accidents occur. I'm personally afraid of heights, so I would always avoid going on the tall rides. As the night went on, I played a few carnival games, but would always come out empty-handed. Maybe I just sucked at the monotonous fair games and was better off playing video games at home. At least it's something I'm better at, but decided to test my luck. After all the unsuccessful attempts at winning my prizes, there was one game that caught my attention. It was an old, dusty-looking machine isolated at the end of the park. It looked like one of those fortune-teller machines that you would see in the arcades. The game didn't draw much attention from the people at the fair, so I decided to check it out myself.
Okay.
It was called Psychic Clown.
Hang on.
It had a side. You know, sort of looked a bit too real for my liking, honestly. I also noticed the game cost $1 per try, so I put whatever spare change I had into the slot. I then pressed the go button, and the clown began talking. It said, "Ask me a yes or no question to uncover the truth, and then press the go button." So, I asked the clown, "Will I get a girlfriend by the end of the year?" I hit the go button, and the clown began moving. It started disturbingly laughing, and then eventually said the word, "No." I thought to myself, this can't be accurate. It's just a fair game. But the sad reality was that the clown was probably right. I decided to ask the clown more personal questions this time. I dropped more change in the slot and asked him, "Are my parents divorced?" My parents have been divorced for 10 years now. I pressed go, and the clown began doing his disturbing laugh again, eventually saying the word, "Yes."
Oh.
At this point, I was really creeped out and contemplated if it was just a fluke, or if this psychic clown game was for real. I reached for more change and realized that I only had $2 left, which was supposed to be my bus fare. I planned on calling my mom to come pick me up, so I decided to use my last $2 on the psychic clown now. I put the first dollar in and was ready to ask it a question, but the game didn't work this time. I gave it a few light taps and the clown began to laugh again. But this time, it seemed like the clown was malfunctioning. It began laughing uncontrollably and started jerking its body back and forth just vigorously. The movements were so vigorous to the point where the clown started banging his head on the glass, causing it to crack. This caused me to have a fight or flight reaction while others laughed at me. I found the whole ordeal pretty disturbing to say the least. I assumed it was some sort of glitch, so I decided to use my last dollar on.
This man is stupid. If I see something that looks like this, I'm talking to them. I am actually going to destroy the entire amusement park, set this thing on fire, and literally just leave the planet.
One more question. The last question I asked to the clown is, will my mom pick me up from the fair tonight?
No.
Again, the clown begins to do its creepy laugh. And then it says the word, "No."
Oh.
The next part of this story is what sends chills down my spine. My mom calls me right after the clown says, "No." I pick up the phone and my mom asks me if I'm on my way home. I ask her if she can pick me up and she says, "Yes, I will." The call abruptly cuts off. I figured my phone had poor signal, so I didn't bother calling her back. I assumed that she was on her way to pick me up.
Oh my
At this point, I
God.
realized that the clown's revelation was wrong. My mom was on her way to pick me up. I head to the exit of the fair to wait for my mom to arrive. A few minutes then turned to an hour. I dial my mom's number again, and I try calling her back, but the call went straight to voicemail. I repeat this 10 more times as I leave her a text message saying, "Where are you?" But I didn't get a response. I then called my stepdad. He answered the phone and asked if I'm headed home. I tell him I've been trying to get a hold of my mom for the past 2 hours. I can hear sheer panic in my stepdad's voice as he tells me he will get my cousin to come pick me up instead. An hour later, my cousin finally arrives to pick me up. He had a look of distraught in his face like he had just been through hell. I ask him if he knows where my mom is and why my stepdad didn't come for the ride. What he said next turned my stomach into a million knots. He tells me that he dropped my stepdad off at the hospital because my mom got into a car crash.
Oh.
I panicked and told my cousin to immediately drive to the hospital. Upon arrival, I find out from the doctors that my mom was pronounced dead from her injuries. It's been a year since my mom's passing, and I always contemplate whether I was the reason for her death, calling and texting her while she was driving. My other theory is it might have had something to do with that psychic clown. Part of
Oh,
me thinks that the psychic clown played a part in my mom's death, but I will never know for sure.
bro, that's actually kind of sad if you think about it. Guys, if someone's picking you up, don't keep texting and don't keep sending voicemails and don't keep calling them. You will panic them and eventually get them in a car crash. Animation number. What the heck is. What now? Animation number what, guys? Wait. Yeah, animation number 5. Okay, guys, animation number 5 is called True Attic Horror Story Animated. Present.
This happened about 2 years ago. I needed a place to live as I just split up with my girlfriend, and then I had to move out of her place. My friend Paul told me he knew someone who owned a house, and that he was renting it out, and said I could live there until I found my own apartment.
Oh.
His name was Dean. I didn't know the
His
guy
name
very
was
well,
what?
someone who owned a house, and that he was renting it out, and said I could live there until I found my own apartment. His name was Dean.
His name was Ding or the other word? What the heck? No, what did I do?
This happened about 2 years ago. I needed a place to live as I just split up with my girlfriend, and then I had to move out of her place. My friend Paul told me he knew someone who owned a house, and that he was renting it out, and said I could live there until I found my own apartment. His name was Dean. I didn't know the guy very well, if at all, and only met him once, but Paul vouched for him, so I decided to move into the house. I arrived at the house and Dean showed me around. The house was nice enough, lots of space, nice front garden, and it was close to where I work. As I was looking around, I noticed there was a padlock on the hatch to the attic. When I asked him what was up there, he just told me there's nothing important up there, just some personal belongings. I didn't think anything of it at the time, as I didn't really know him. He was pretty much a stranger, so I didn't really blame him for keeping his possessions locked away. My first night there, I woke up at around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom. I headed back to my bedroom when I heard a noise coming from the attic.
That there's
It
someone
sounded like
trapped.
something was being dragged across the floor. I thought it was just the wind, or the house making noise, as that happens sometimes. The next night, I heard the same noise coming from the attic again, this time waking me up. I sat up and concentrated on the noise. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out what it was. I thought maybe it was rats or something. There wasn't much I could do anyway, as the attic was locked shut. The next day, I decided to text Dean and ask him about what could be making the noises in the attic. He just said, "Oh, it's nothing. Probably just a bird that got in there or something." For every night for the next week, I could hear the same noises coming from the attic, and it woke me up more times than not. One night, I had enough. I got some bolt cutters, and I cut the padlock off, and I pulled the ladder down and headed up there. When I was there looking in the attic, it was dark, like really dark. I couldn't see a thing. I had to go back down and get a candle. I didn't have a flashlight yet, and my phone
Guys, this animation is low-key kind of sick.
was an old BlackBerry that didn't have a light on it. I shined the candlelight around. As I got into the attic, I couldn't really see much, mostly boxes and a few sports equipment. As I was searching around, I tripped over some boxes, knocking them on the floor, and some photos fell out. I set my candle down to pick them up. As I was putting them back, I looked closely at one of them. It was a woman tied up with a pig mask on her face. I thought this was a bit weird, but some people are into that type of thing. I looked through some more. It was the same thing, just women tied up and pig masks on their faces. And then I came across another one. This time, someone was next to the woman, and it was Dean. The woman looked to be in a lot of pain, and she was crying and looked like she was screaming while Dean looked at it. I don't know, he just looked like he was laughing while holding a knife right up to her face. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Call the
My
police.
heart started racing as I scrambled through the photos, looking at more and more of these women being tortured by Dean. I felt sick to my stomach and wanted to throw up. I was about to head down, and I was going to call the police when I heard a noise across on the other side of the attic. The same noise that's been waking me up every single night. I slowly wandered over to where the noise was coming from.
That's
There was
him.
a blanket. It was covering something up, and I pulled the blanket back and I jumped out of my skin and fell down to the ground in shock. There was a woman gagged and chained to the floor. She had bruises on her body and a black eye. I quickly ungagged her and got the bolt cutters, and I set her free. She was very weak and couldn't really talk. She was dehydrated and hungry. I quickly called the police and the ambulance right away.
Look behind
I
you.
told the police everything, and they soon found Dean and arrested him at this house. The woman I found was actually reported missing about 6 weeks ago. Dean was sentenced and charged with kidnapping, torture, false imprisonment, and other things. Thankfully, the woman made a full recovery. Physically, at least.
Okay guys, that's gonna do it for this video. What the heck was that? If you enjoyed this video, subscribe with notifications on, hit that like button, follow me on Twitter, check out animated horror flicks and what is this called also, and horror shorts party. Goodbye guys. Goodbye.